Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Lifting the Lid. My name is Andy Ely. I'm a Senior Funeral Director with G. Seller Independent Funeral Directors, and we've been serving bereaved families since 1910. I'm sure you're all well aware there's lots of different taboos, misconceptions, myths around what happens within the funeral profession. So we've decided to put together this series of podcasts to try and dispel some of those myths and of course answer any questions. So please do like, share and subscribe. Send us those questions. Send them to liftingthelid@gseller.co.uk and we will do our absolute utmost to answer them for you. It genuinely is our family caring for your family. Now I'm joined again by Joe, or with Joe I should say, my colleague. So the last episode that we spoke through, it was what happens when someone passes away. So the first steps. So this is kind of a follow-on episode I guess. What happens afterwards? So once we've effected that conveyance, we've been into your loved one's home and brought that individual out into our care. Now, this is the bit you wouldn't normally see as a family, so we thought it was quite important to share what happens here. And again, it does vary a little bit as to where we are, so whether it's the tragic circumstances that we spoke about and whether we're using the coroner's mortuary or whether we're of course bringing it into our care at the G. Seller mortuary. So should we talk about the coroners first?
Yeah, I mean, with coroners' conveyances, we don't have much control over. You know, we will be told where deceased is to be taken to. That's normally a local hospital, usually around here either Leicester Royal Infirmary or in very rare cases the George Eliot in Nuneaton.
Absolutely.
And in a nutshell, to be honest with you, we follow their procedures. So, you know, we would go to the relevant hospital and from there we'd follow their procedures to what happened with the deceased. That's very different as to how we look after things here at G. Seller though, of course.
Yeah, completely. And of course, so we're going to talk a little bit more detail around what happens at G. Seller. So some of the points are the same. So certainly recording that loved one into the mortuary register, ensuring all the jewellery is recorded. But at G. Seller it's slightly different. So we mentioned previously we're quite unique, that we convey people individually in the conveyance vehicle. Now we have a garage area, don't we, that we can reverse into.
We do.
And everything that we've done from that point is out of sight of the public. So it's all, we preserve people's dignity.
Yep.
And that's something I think we follow through, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, something actually we didn't necessarily touch upon last time, but certainly is relevant for now, is a dignity sheet that we use for every single person that we convey into our care. Now, I must admit, again, got my health and safety hat on here, dignity sheet is very good to actually use as a lifting aid as well. We did mention, of course, we've got to look after each other. None of us get any younger on our backs, we only get one of those. So these sheets are very useful just to assist us with lifting. They repel water, so they don't get any less weak in there if someone's passed away in a bath or so. And they're very useful, of course, but they also act as a dignity sheet, as I said, that everybody is placed into.
Yeah.
When brought back into our care, I mean, I think we just touched upon that there. It isn't necessary for us to weigh people, just talking about the health and safety.
So that's the health and safety piece for subsequently determines how many perhaps people we need. So the ceremonial piece that we're talking about, if we're shouldering someone, we need to ensure that our colleagues are safe. You know, it can be potentially quite a big weight on your shoulder.
Absolutely, safe for colleagues, but also safe for the deceased as well. Safe for family if they want to shoulder people.
Absolutely.
It means that we can advise as best as we can.
So as well as weigh your loved one, we measure them because not everyone's the same size. So I think someone asked me once, are all graves the same size? And I think the answer is no, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Are all the coffins the same size or no?
Well, no. It needs to be tailored to suit the individual. So that first stage, we make sure we've measured that individual to make sure we order the right size coffin.
Absolutely. Everybody ultimately, I must admit, once someone's been weighed and they've been measured there, we do apply a thin layer of cream actually to people's sort of extremities as well. This will no doubt be something that perhaps Rhonda covers a little bit more detail, discusses the embalming episode, but certainly along the fingers, a bit of cream around the eyes and the mouth, because this does assist with just keeping moisture within the skin.
So absolutely, nature begins to take its course, and when we do touch on embalming, that process is to slow nature, but we try to do the best we can in the first instance by applying that cream, don't we? It's just to slow things down as best we can, and of course we've got the temperature control, so we convey it into the mortuary. I think it's important to say before we go into that, we we record every individual in a register. So we've got the name, where we've brought them into care from, any personal effects with them, any jewellery that's recorded and captured, which we then pop into a safe. Just keep a record of absolutely everything, so there's a paper trail at every single stage.
And also it's on computer, isn't it?
It is.
So it's a computer system where all that information is also stored fully auditable should we ever need to look at it in the future.
So I think it's important to say as well, and this is quite difficult to touch upon really, but unfortunately individuals sometimes there's a bit of soiling, isn't there?
Yeah, you can get body fluid, of course, as you
Yeah.
know. It might happen in certain circumstances, especially if you are moving a deceased person around in any sort of way. Sometimes there's fluid on the lungs and it can still be brought up with any pressure that might be there. And so yeah, you can get some soiling. And of course, you like myself or anybody at G-Cellar, any soiling is cleared off immediately.
Absolutely.
If someone has messed perhaps their underwear or so, we'll clean that up and we'll put some dignity pants on them, just to make sure that when they're looked after at our place, everything's done with dignity and respect.
Absolutely, and we have dignity panels within the refrigeration system as well, don't we? So it's the individual in front of you that you're looking at rather than a bank of everybody in our care.
It also means that if people come, as they might need to, perhaps doctors to come and view that deceased person, they're individually there. They're not viewing multiple people all at once.
So of course we, equipment-wise, I know you're the health and safety executive, but we do have to look after ourselves. So we do have a scissor lift, don't we? A pump-up truck, which enables us to move people sensibly, safely, and as dignified as possible from one area to another, and of course keep them in our care. So after the registration process is finished, we can do a little bit more, can't we? We've got permission then to carry on and look after your loved one a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's asked if, specifically with regards to embalming, everyone is asked for permission if we're able to embalm someone. We never just do it. We do need permission from families before we do that. But that is certainly something that will carry on as a part of us looking after that deceased person as you move forward. Embalming in itself, I say there'll be an episode for that. But it will involve washing. Everyone is fully washed, regardless of whether people are embalmed or not. We'll always make sure people are washed and
dressed in their own clothes if need be. And this is part of the conversation with whoever's arranging that funeral, and whether they wish their loved one to be laid to rest in their own clothes or perhaps a gown. Do you know what? Even if they want to be involved in that washing and dressing process,
well, some cultures like to be, don't they? Some cultures will insist they come in and insist they're part of that, which is absolutely fine. We'll set up the mortuary area, an area there where they can look after the washing part, and then we'd set up a place where they could assist with dressing as well. Yeah,
and jewellery, any additional jewellery, hair, their own makeup, any personal items that wish to be placed with their loved one. I think it's important to say as well that each area at G-Cellar is kind of segregated, so dignity is preserved at all times.
Absolutely.
So we have the cool area for refrigeration is completely separate from the embalming area, which is completely separate from the dressing area, completely separate from the coffin workshop, and it all flows quite nicely. So at any one time you're not in one room and you can just see absolutely everything going on. Everyone's dignity is properly respected.
And of course, if people provide us with the information, not something necessarily is going to affect myself, but if someone's got something for a particular hairstyle, makeup, then of course we will make sure that people look exactly how they'd expect them to if they came to see him in our chapel of rest.
We quite often receive photographs, don't we, so we can get that hair right.
We do, yeah.
And shave if need be.
Although sometimes I do get photographs of people wearing a hat, which isn't very useful. But
yes, that I think that was me. I think it was about 20 years old as well, wasn't that photo? But it's really important for us to refer to. So your loved one should be peacefully asleep.
Absolutely.
And it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Everyone should receive that level of care.
Indeed. Okay.
All right. So thank you, Joe. Please, as I said, if there's any questions that you have or you want us to touch a little bit more detail about any of the points that we've been through, please email us, like, share, subscribe. The email address liftingthelid@gcellar.co.uk, and we will do our absolute best to answer them for you. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.